Hey everybody, Shawn here from the Automation Blog and School. And this week on the Automation Podcast, I interview Lisa Richter from the CSiA, that's the Control Systems Integrators Association, to find out all about her Talking Industrial Automation podcast, as well as about the CSiA and what they do, and much more. Lisa, thank you for coming on the Automation Podcast. Really appreciate you having us on, not only to tell us about your podcast, but also tell us about the CSiA. Now, before we get started, just to recap for the audience, I'm reaching out to other podcasters in the industrial automation arena, to help fill in your week, because I'm only creating one podcast a week so that you'll have additional podcasts to listen to. So I'm reaching out and I'm learning things in the process, and I hope the audience does as well. But with that said, Lisa, could you start by introducing yourself to the audience?
Sure. My name is Lisa Richter. I am the Director of Industry Growth and Outreach for CSiA, and CSiA is Control System Integrators Association. And I started out pretty much as a journalism major. I wanted to be Carrie on Sex and the City, Sarah Jessica Parker's role, maybe not do that kind of columns, but I definitely saw myself as like a feature writer for some glamorous magazine. That didn't pan out. I did start out in the trade press and did do some writing, but it was mostly for associations. And I just sort of slipped into association work early in my career, still doing communications, newsletters, magazines at the time where we were still doing things in print. I think there's still some print magazines, but you know what I mean. And it just became my jam. I loved the ability to work with different associations and live vicariously, right? So if I'm working for the CSIA, I'm working with engineers, but if I'm working with a different kind of association, maybe it's women accountants, or maybe it's law firm marketers, or maybe it's transportation brokers. What a great way to learn about all those different industries, what their pain points are, what they're excited about, what they do. I mean, there's an association for absolutely everything. And it's fascinating. There are definitely things that are the same from association to association, committees and board of directors and structure and all that kind of thing. But each one has its own personality. And I know I'm talking in sweeping generalizations, but you can say there are certain characteristics that engineers have, and there's certain characteristics that marketers have, or whatever industry you're talking about. You sort of get to know generally how they tick, what makes them tick, how you need to communicate with them. I communicate very differently with engineers than I might with a marketer, right? With an engineer, they want you to speak very directly. They don't necessarily want metaphors. They want you to be very clear about what you're saying. They don't mind if you just tell it like it is, as much as maybe somebody else might get a little offended by that. So adjusting the way I talk to my audiences is something that I've learned over the years to do. But the other thing that I really like about association work is it's mission-based. Right. So for what I'm not selling sneakers, I'm not out there trying to convince somebody that they need something they don't. It allows me to work in a way that feels very authentic to who I am and my values. And it's fun. It's fun helping businesses achieve their goals, or helping people achieve their goals and advancing in their career and seeing them advance in their career. And I've just had so many great experiences. One of my favorite things in the world was with one client, we put together a publication called the Better World Report. And literally we would go out to universities and hear what their scientists were developing. It could be anything from a unique nutcracker to help somebody in the Congo feed their family, or just all kinds of, interesting, serendipitous innovations that were coming out of these universities for these scientists who are toiling in anonymity year after year after year, for them to be able to shine a light on some amazing thing that they've created or invented. Really, really rewarding and just interesting. The journalism degree allowed me to have creativity. It allowed me to put together my organizational skills, and it allowed me to satisfy that thirst for knowledge. Like, I need to be learning all the time. Like, YouTube is the worst thing in the world for me, because I get sucked into there. And I'm sure that happens for a lot of people. But I just have a voracious mind and constantly want to be learning things. So that was just a good fit for me. The association world is a good fit for me. So at one point I worked my way up to VP of marketing for an association with 23 million in reserves and a trade show that drew 16,000 people. It was exciting. I really liked it, but OMG, the stress level and all that went along with that position led me finally to the CSIA, which is a better fit for me personally because I'm a collaborative worker and I'm not a competitive worker. I think some organizations thrive on this competitiveness. The departments are pitted against each other on the P&L, and the budgets
Yep.
are fought over, and it's just I'm just not. I was never good at sports for that reason as well. I was one of those people who was fairly coordinated and fairly athletic, but I just didn't have that fire in the belly when it came to beating somebody. It's just not where I'm at. So where I've landed in my career is really a good place for me.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I think it might part of it might be generational and part of it might be personality. But I hear you when you talk about wanting to learn, like you were talking about what universities are doing, and I'm always, whenever I see one of those new battery type, because lithium ion, while it does a great job powering our laptops and electric cars, if you have one, it's not it doesn't seem like the end solution to me. Like there has to be something better. And all these universities and startups are developing new, better, cheaper, safer, faster batteries. And I can't, every time I see one, and then I'm the type who has to put it on, times two speed because it's like, they had the preamble and then blah blah blah. And it's like, and I get the closed captions on. I get on two. I mean, I have another one on with just the closed captions on. So yeah, I know about that. The desire to learn but it's also fun to sit down and just have a conversation. Some of the videos we do here are just conversational, where we're just talking to the audience and about what's going on, what's new, what's happening. Um,
Shawn, think about this. Maybe somebody's two-timing right through this video right now.
Oh, they could, and that's fine. And I think that's great. It's great that almost every platform I've looked at has that option. And I think we all want to learn more and more. And it's a depressing day when I get up and there's nothing new. It's like, there's nothing new today. I love it's like a little snack to get that, that new little video or news article or whatnot.
Yeah.
So and I think coming from a tech support background where I was supporting the customers who were trying to implement automation products, a lot of integrators in that, and some members of the CSIA, it was all about teamwork to get the project done, and so I think a lot of people in plants, they like that environment when they're in the plant, and hey, we are a team. This is a facility. We make X, and if we can do it better, we all win. And I think those type of environments always work for most personalities anyways. Now, with that said, I'm sure there are some, and it's been a while since I actually looked at the details of CSIA. Um, and I think there's probably some on who maybe they're end users, maybe they're OEMs, and they're not familiar with what the organization is. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, absolutely. So the association was founded a little over 25 years ago by a couple of system integrators who got together and were like, I know we're competitors, but we also have so much in common. Why can't we pool our knowledge and work together to build our businesses to be better? And that's really in the DNA of the organization. So it's all about helping system integrators grow their business. We know there's people like you out there to teach them how to do the technical stuff, but what they don't know is maybe how to read a P&L or how to do sales and marketing, or especially as they grow. Two guys in a garage, fine, we can muddle through, no big deal. But if you want to scale, that's where you're going to need some help in understanding what kind of insurance you need to buy, and how to, what metrics you need to be looking at to ensure that you have the proper cash flow and all that stuff that goes into building a business. So we have a best practices manual for our system integrator members that is like 300 pages. It's like this thick, and it really goes through every area of the business. And it's not prescriptive. We don't tell them how to run their businesses, but we say, hey, you got to think about this and you got to think about that. And maybe consider this. What's your elevator pitch? What's your blah, blah, blah? And just help them really think through each department of their organization. Now, the whole thing's not going to apply to every organization because there's smaller SIs and there's bigger SIs, but it's a starting place. Then if a system integrator wants to get really ambitious, they can take those best practices and actually get audited to earn a certification that is a third-party validation that, yes, you know what you're doing. Yes, you have your SOPs and you have your documentation and all that stuff that signals to an end user, this is a system integrator who not only knows what they're doing, but they care enough about their business to be able to go out and, show their dirty laundry and let somebody come in and say, hey, maybe this is an area you need to clean up, or maybe you need to be stronger here. I mean, that takes somebody brave to bring somebody in
Yeah.
from the outside and take a look at their business, which is oftentimes their baby, right? Nobody wants to hear that they have an ugly baby. So that's really a big part of why system integrators join. We also have other things like marketing resources and other member benefits like professional development. And we have our in-person event, which is happening June 27th through the 30th. I don't know if your listeners are going to hear this before or after the event, but it will be our first in-person conference since the before times, and people are stoked. They are so ready to get back in person. You can replicate all the professional development you want digitally, but there is no way to really replicate that networking and seeing each other in person and patting each other on the back and just getting reconnecting with people in person. So people are really stoked about that. And then we also have some very practical member benefits, like for a lot of system integrators, they need to go out and get a specific kind of insurance. You can't just go to the farmer's agent down the street. It's going to take you a week to explain to them what you do and what the risks are and what you need. You need cybersecurity, this and whatever it is. The average agent just isn't going to know that. So we've vetted a few professional services providers, legal, financial, insurance, that we know they know the system integration business and are really a good fit for helping them do that sort of thing. And then another part of our membership are what we call our partner members. And these are people who want to rub elbows with system integrators. They may have an SI program, somebody like Inductive who's built their go-to-market strategy on system integrators. They want to be part of the association because they want to hear the customer's pain points. They want to get to know what makes them tick, what they're experiencing, what the trends are. Just be able to interact with them, get their content in front of in front of that audience. So we do have some partner members, and we're mostly U.S. based. I think we're like 80% U.S. based. We have a small but mighty LATAM region. There's maybe 50 members there, but they are engaged. If there's a virtual event, they're there and they're staying after the hour. I mean, they're very engaged. So we're really, really kind of proud of that, about being able to expand outside the U.S. I don't know that there's anything else I need to say about the CSIA. I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah, I can definitely see if you're a smaller integrator that's had a lot of exponential growth and your profits are good, but you're kind of worried about, is the structure strong enough to continue to grow at that rate, that would be a great idea to join and take advantage of those resources. I can also see larger integrators who maybe are thinking about expanding or merging. This is a way to make sure everything's kind of, you know, has a nice bow tied on it, and everything's been checked and ready to go. You've been audited, things you need to do and things you need to work on, especially with an expansion, or maybe something you want to do before merging with somebody else to make sure your both companies are strong and
I
well
think too,
run.
the biggest thing that I probably didn't emphasize enough is the DNA of the organization is really sharing with each other. So I've
Hmm.
worked, as I mentioned, with associations my whole career, and I've never
Sure.
come across one that is so willing to share. We even have at our conference a session called Lessons from a Hot Stove, or Lessons from Touching a Hot Stove, or something. And system integrators get up on stage and talk about how they messed up. Now, it always has a happy ending. There's always a good resolution to the story, but I just have never seen that before,
Sure.
where companies are willing to, again, kind of air their dirty laundry in front of everybody else, and with the idea that they're sharing. They want somebody else to learn from this experience and maybe not make the same mistake. So that's another really unique thing about the organization that I probably didn't emphasize enough. There's this saying, like, bring one idea and come back with 10. And they truly they walk the talk. They really do.
Yeah, I think a lot of users will do that type of user-led presentation because they're so appreciative for the previous presenters who they've learned so much from. We used to have customers who would present at vendor shows, and they would do it because, look, I've seen so many great, I've learned so much. All these people have shared their pitfalls and problems that I feel like it's my turn to give back. We just finished our project, and I really feel like I need to give back. And that's great when you have a community like that, an organization that forces that. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears and talk about the podcast. What is the pod? We'll go through everything. What's the podcast name? What's the website? Where can you subscribe? How often does it come out? If you could just give us all the details on the podcast
Sure.
itself.
Sure. So the name is Talking Industrial Automation. And I will say off the top, this was not my idea. I inherited this. And the guy who created it, his name is Tony Veroven. I'm probably not saying his name correctly. And I would kiss him full on the lips every day if I could, because it's just genius. It works on so many different levels. Right now I'm doing about a monthly drop. I would love to do more. I think I could grow the show if I did a more frequent podcast, but I am the bottleneck there. When you're
Sure.
doing content like this, you're the producer, you're the host, you're the editor sometimes, although I've gotten to the point now where I'm outsourcing some of the editing. It's still a tremendous amount of work. But what is so genius about it, and it's just such a win-win, and it's an exponential win, right? So he started it because he was in charge of driving traffic to one of CSIA's smart directories called CSIA Exchange. And this is where system integrators, partners, and end users connect and do business.
Okay.
If an end user is looking for a system integrator for a particular project, they can filter their search by product, category, specialty, geographic location, if they're trying to find a system integrator. So he was charged with driving traffic there because it was a brand new directory, and we needed to get people there, right? And so this was a way for him to be able to drive traffic to the site, promote CSIA members to the wider community, promote CSIA, promote the exchange. It also allowed our system integrators to get leads. I mean, literally, I've had system integrators contact me and let me know that somebody reached out after hearing the podcast on LinkedIn. It promotes CSIA. So we've gotten members from the podcast. We also generate a little bit of revenue, not a lot. It's very minimal. But any podcast that's generating revenue and you're not Crime Junkie or something like that, hey, good on you. And so if you want to listen to the podcast, you go to, they're on all the major platforms, Spotify, whatever Apple's name is right now, iHeartRadio, all the big ones. It's whatever your favorite one is, you can find it there. But if you want to just see it as a conglomerate, you go to csiexchange.com/podcast, and you will see the latest episodes there. And the idea is that I'm interviewing CSIA members, and I don't have a technical background. So I'm asking them questions like, I can't talk to you about anything technical. I'm a liberal arts major. I mentioned journalism degree. I just can't. But I am interested in learning how you got started in your career, what trends you're seeing in the industry, what was a favorite project that you work on, what advice would you give your younger self? What kind of a job would you do if you didn't do what you do now? Most people say, I love what I do. I would only want to do this. But every now and again, you get somebody who says they want to be a treasure hunter or something completely out of the blue that you didn't see coming. I get a lot of baseball players. A lot of the guys want to be baseball players. Yeah. Well, this is the other thing. I have a very male dominated audience. And what I want to say about that is this is the second industry I've worked in that was highly male dominated.
Sure.
And it's way better. It's way better because I mentioned it's much more collaborative. The people I meet are truly kind, empathetic, and they have a lot of integrity. And I don't know why that surprised me. It probably shouldn't have, but I had just this idea of engineers are one way in my head, like, the stereotypes of them. And I just never realized how truly kind they are. Anyway, I'm going to get a little weepy on it, but coming from a different industry where it was very male dominated and it was not like that at all. I think I mentioned it was very competitive.
Sure.
It's just a welcome relief to be amongst these guys who are they're problem solvers too. There's not a whole lot of drama. There's a little bit of drama, but there's not a whole lot of drama. I appreciate that. They very much, we've got a situation here. Let's solve the problem. Let's not sit around and create a lot of drama. So I appreciate that about them as well. So I just sit down and have a conversation. I do script the podcast in that I send the questions ahead of time to the guest and ask him, which ones of these do you want me to ask you? You're feel free to add some questions, because again, I'm dealing with engineers. They want a plan, right? They don't want to just wing it. They want to know, what are you going to ask me? I want to have my notes ready and all that good stuff. So So they are scripted questions that I send to them. We record it, and then I drop it and promote it. And I've managed to, over the years, get a cumulative total of over 100,000 downloads. Each episode probably gets about 1,000 downloads. And to put that in perspective, according to BuzzFeed, is it BuzzFeed or Buzzsprout? One of those hosting platforms did the data, and only about 10% of podcasts achieve those numbers. So while it may not sound like a huge amount of listeners, or I don't know what you call them, subscribers, in the grand scheme of things, we're doing all right.
No, you're doing great. And I'm not surprised because it's kind of funny you say that you send a list to them. I think, whenever my wife asks me something, I'm like, all right, you got to give me a minute to think about this because I'm one of those guys who's like, has to work through it a couple different ways in my head, and so I'm not surprised. And working with engineers and programmers and electricians who do control systems, they don't like a lot of surprises
Nope,
because you
they
can't be
don't.
your best when you're just doing things on the fly. You can't. We all know it. Nobody's um omnipotent where they just know the code.
Well,
It
I
just
have to
comes out of the
say,
sky. Yeah,
so because we do have partner members too, I'm also dealing with vendors, right? And they'll put their
sure.
sales guys on. Now that's a whole different ball game. When a
Yeah,
sales guy's on, he's used to speaking publicly, he's used to speaking extemporaneously,
yes.
he's got his patter down.
Yep.
Oftentimes has maybe even taken classes on public speaking. So it's a completely different vibe when I have the partner members on. Still good. It's just a real marked difference between the two
Different,
types of
much
guests.
different.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I started doing these interview episodes because, ostensibly, to talk to people who are doing other podcasts, but also to talk to, we have some people on some shows in the can to talk to people who are they're out there doing it, they're living it, they're programming daily, setting up control systems. And as much as, back in, I think it was episode 48, we switched over to with Mitsubishi and then Siemens, we switched over to having vendors on because I was really just discussing before then, I was just discussing, articles from the automation blog. And I was just doing it because, it's easier to listen to something when you're bored in the car than it is to find time sometimes to go and read articles online. But I made that switch at the same time we went multi-vendor, and best thing I ever did. But it's great having the vendors on because they do these WebExes, or what we used to call WebExes, mostly Teams now, and they do it all the time. Because most of them have very large territories, and so they're very good at being able to present. You know, most of them are experienced where they can present their product in a presentation and not put you to sleep, and that's very important. And over my 30 plus years, I found that's extremely important. And like we have like a silent rule, like if anybody's has a bad presentation performance, everybody has to rib them because it's like the worst thing sitting through falling asleep during a presentation. It's like if you have to be there, you don't want to fall asleep. But I love talking to vendors. We're going to continue to have vendors on our show to talk about new products, specifically like the stuff you see behind me for those who are viewing. But I really enjoy having a conversation like this because today I learned a lot about CSIA. I hadn't looked at them in years. And it's great to know about your podcast. I need to add it to my list as well. So when I'm mowing, we have about 3 acres I have to mow every week. So I'm always constantly looking for things to listen to while I'm on the tractor. So, but I think too, for our audience that is either an integrator, which we have many, or who are looking for an integrator to know about the exchange, I think this is going to be helpful and interesting. And Lisa, I really want to thank you, and I really appreciate you coming on the show. Were there any final topics you wanted to touch on before we close
I
out the
do.
episode?
I
Oh, go
do.
ahead,
I have two things.
please.
One,
Yeah.
I want to thank Ira Sharp from Phoenix Contact for putting us in
Ira.
touch. Yeah,
Yep.
that was very, very awesome. And number two, what is your accent?
Yeah. So northeast, northeast. I parked my car.
There we go. There it
I
is. All
parked it
right.
and then I unparked it. Smart park. I
I
love that
love it.
commercial. But it,
It was great talking to you so much. Thank you for
yeah,
having me on. Really
thank you
appreciate it.
so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I want to thank Lisa for taking time out of her busy schedule to come on the show and tell us all about our podcast and the CSIA. With that said, if you know anybody who's looking for affordable online automation training, please send them over to theautomationschool.com. That's where they'll find my PLC HMI and SCADA training courses. Also, if you want to follow me and or support me, You can do so over at automation.locals.com. With that said, I want to wish you all a very safe, happy, and healthy week. And until next time, my friends, peace.